Good afternoon or lunchtime. Today is our fifth session of the Wallet Wisdom. My name is Kristen Penner. I am the district director as well as the family resource management agent in the Wild West District, and I am your host for today. This series is brought to you by K-State Research and Extension, Family Resource Management Program Focus Team. And all of our programs are open to anyone. We do not discriminate against any of these protected classes that are on our screen at this time. Also, K-State University is a part of a land grant system, which has three-part mission of education, research, and extension. K-State Research and Extension, being the extension or outreach part of the mission, provides resources and educational programming to empower residents and communities across the state. We have offices in every county in the state of Kansas. Some counties have gone together to create districts. Those are the purple counties that are connected together on the map that's on our screen right now. Your local office can be found by going to the URL on this slide and post it in the chat box by clicking on your county. And that should take you straight to the websites. Okay. I found this on the web. Next slide, please. There we go. Okay, so we are recording our session today. Names and appearances of persons may be captured in recordings. If you do unmute yourself or turn on your video, it can capture your name, so just be mindful of that. We also understand that any financial matters are personal. Any questions you ask in the chat feature can only be seen by the host. So please send those directly to myself, Kristen Penner, and I will ask those out loud at the appropriate times without using your names. Today, our topic is debt management. This is our fifth Wallet Wisdom series. We've included dates and a list of topics we will be covering during the next 6 weeks. So we're almost to the end of our Wallet Wisdom series. I hope you guys have been enjoying it. You can join us for as many as you want. If you're not able to attend, these are being recorded, and so you can go back and catch them at a later date as well. We'll be sending out the PowerPoints and any additional links and resources each week after the workshop. The information provided in this session does not and is not intended to constitute financial advice. Instead, all the information, content, and materials presented are for general information and educational purposes only. We understand that everyone's financial situation is a little different. There's not a one-size-fits-all when it comes to personal finance. This series of programs is not intended to be a substitute for your personalized financial advice. And now I'll get to introducing Monica. Monica is our presenter for today. She is the Family Resource Management Extension Agent in the River Valley District, which covers Clay, Cloud, Republic, and Washington County in North Central Kansas. So I'll turn it over to you now, Monica.
Thanks, Kristen. I'm really excited to be here and to be sharing about debt management today. So to get us started, we are actually going to do a poll here. And so Joy is going to launch that, and we're asking, how confident are you in managing your debt? So this poll is going to be going here for about 30 to 40 seconds. Are you very confident, somewhat confident, or not confident at all? So if you'll go ahead and just take a few moments here, and looks like we've got actually a really good response rate already. So we'll give you just a few more moments for those few that have not answered. So how confident are you in managing your debt? All right, Joy, if you want to go ahead and stop that and share the results. Looks like most of us are falling into that somewhat confident. We've got about 57% there. 7 people are saying they're very confident and 2 are not confident at all. So just as a getting started on this, I hope that everybody, whether you are very confident or not confident at all or somewhere in between, that you walk away from this presentation with some tools and resources to help you manage your debt. So we'll go ahead and stop that share. Thank you. All right. All right, so when we talk about debt, just a basic general definition for debt is something that's owed. It's obligation to pay something or repay something or someone in return for something that you have received. So when I say the word debt, people think of many different types of debts. Here's just a couple of examples. So medical debts, student loans, mortgages, credit cards, auto loans, those are all just examples. And like Kristen already mentioned, everyone's debt situation is going to be different. So while we talk about things today and while I'm sharing tools and resources, like Kristen mentioned, you have to find what works best in your debt situation. So everybody's going to be a little bit different, but there is one thing that most of us have in common, and that is that we have debt. The average American, according to the Experian 2020 Consumer Debt Study, has $92,727 in debt. Now, this does include mortgages, home equity lines of credit or HELOCs, student loans, auto loans, personal loans, and credit cards. Those are what debts are making up this average balance. And down below that is by ages. So different generations and how much debt they are carrying. As you see, our middle generation there, Generation X, is carrying the most debt. The one good thing is if you are a Kansas resident, our Kansas average is actually a little bit lower. We are average for debt is $73,123. So I just like to show this study because it's so important that we realize we live in a very materialistic world and keeping up with the Joneses. And I am just as guilty as that. And my husband often has to remind me when I'm asking, oh my gosh, did you see so-and-so's new car? That you don't know what kind of debt they are in. And this is a really good figure to show you that Americans are most likely in debt. So today, a lot of the resources, actually most of the resources that I'm going to share with you today are from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The email or their website is right there on the screen, as well as Joy is putting it there in the chat, consumerfinance.gov. And the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or I'll shorten it to CFPB, they are a government agency. They help consumers so they get treated fairly by banks, lenders, financial companies. But they also provide educational resources to consumers on financial matters, including loans, debt, credit reports, lots of other great resources available out there on that website. But the main thing I'm going to be using today is a series of booklets called Your Money, Your Goals. And there are 4 booklets available. I'm going to be focusing mainly on 2. And again, these booklets are available for free online through the consumerfinance.gov website. There is Debt Getting in Your Way, Get a Handle on It. So that's one that I'm going to be focusing on today, as well as Behind on Bills. So those are the 2 books I'll focus on. There are 2 other books that are great, Building Your Savings, as well as Want Credit to Work for You. So on that website, you can download these books. You can request to get them sent to you. You may also check to see if your local extension office has them available for you to pick up for free. So again, really great resources, and we will be referring back to these a lot today. But as we get started, I just wanted to kind of go over the 4 objectives or topics, areas that I'm going to talk about with debt management. And that is knowing your debt, prioritizing your debt, reducing your debt, and dealing with debt collectors. So by the end of this presentation, I hope you can walk away with tools and resources to help you in any of these 4 areas. And so that's what we're going to start, and we're going to take one more really quick poll. And what area of debt management are you most focused on? And this should be available, excuse me, that you can select as many as you would like. Knowing your debt, reducing your debt, prioritizing your debt, or dealing with debt collectors. So we'll give you here just a few more moments to go ahead and answer what area are you most focused on. All right, looks like we have most people that have completed that poll. So we'll go ahead and share those results. And for the most part, people are looking at reducing their debt, 75% of you. So we will really try to focus a lot on that. I have some really great resources on that, and I'm very passionate about that. So thank you for participating in that. And we will get started more on starting off with knowing your debt. So we're going to do a really quick activity. What I want you to do, grab a piece of paper or a pen. It can be scratch. It doesn't have to be anything. You're going to just use this for yourself. So this is a similar activity that's in the Debt Getting in Your Way booklet from the CFPB. And you're going to take a moment, and I either want you to draw a picture or make a list of words of the debt that you currently have. So here are some examples of things you could draw. You don't have to be that much of an artist, because again, you're not sharing this with anybody. It's just for yourself to get a debt picture idea. So what kind of debt do you have? I'll give you just a few moments, jot it down, draw a little picture, just to give you an idea of what your debt is. So when my husband and I, like I said, I'm very passionate about debt management. And for myself, when my husband and I really worked hard on getting our debt down, we would have had student loans, credit cards, and auto loans and a mortgage. So that's what I would draw in my debt picture. While you have that debt picture or that list of words, go ahead and star the debts or circle the debts that concern you the most. And it could be that you circle your entire list or picture, because maybe you are at that point where you are just really ready to reduce all the debt that you are carrying. But this is just a little activity to kind of get you started on knowing what your debt is. And now if you know your debt, you need to know what you owe. So off the last activity, you know what your debt consists of, but do you know all the details, like the balance, what interest it is, what's your payoff date? And if you don't, what I need you to do is start grabbing all these documents. Of course, you're not going to do it now, but when we get done, I hope you go through and do this. You'll want to gather your credit card statements. If you have a mortgage or loan agreements, rental agreements, court orders, if you have back child support or judgments against you that you owe, billing statements for like utility or medical bills. And one thing I really wanted to mention is that a monthly utility bill isn't debt. That's going to be your fixed expense or your flexible expense for the month when you're looking at a spending plan. But if you are behind on that bill and there's a past due amount and subsequent fees, those are debt. So you will want to get that. The other thing would be running your credit report if you haven't done that. And I'm not going to talk a lot about credit reports because Joy Miller is actually going to be presenting on this next week with All About Credit. So we hope you join us then. But a credit report is a list of all your credit activities. So it's going to include where you live, have you been sued or filed for bankruptcy, how you pay your bills, and what you owe on credit or any debts. So that might be beneficial for you as well, but join us next week so you can learn a little bit more about credit. And so once you have all of that paper documents combined, and it could be online through a phone or something, but you're going to create a debt log. And this is the one through the CFPB. Joy is putting it out there in the chat. And you can use this one that is in through the CFPB. You can use a piece of paper, you can use Excel, you can use Google Sheets, whatever works for you. There's also an awesome resource called PowerPay through Utah State University Extension, which I'm going to be sharing a lot more about in a few slides. But what you're going to ultimately do is make a list of your debts. Who do you owe? How much do you owe? That monthly payment, your interest rate, and your payoff date, or even a payoff goal if you're wanting to do it sooner when we are looking at reducing debt, which again, we'll talk about here in a little bit. But what that ultimately is going to do is you are going to calculate your monthly debt payment so that you know how much you're paying each month towards debt. And sometimes just seeing it in this list form, whether it is on paper or through some kind of computer system, it can be really a pivotal moment to realize, because sometimes you're just going day to day and paying everything and you're not really seeing what that total amount is. And my suggestion is to repeat this every few months to track your debt. Is it growing or is it shrinking? Because if you are working on reducing your debt, then you want to make sure that it is shrinking. And another tool that can help you while you're working on knowing your debt is a bill calendar. Because when you are working on debt, you need to know that when those payments are due. So you create a calendar. Again, you can use this paper one, like through the CFPB. Personally, I have just a little calendar that I bought at a box store that is in my purse that I keep my bill calendar on. So I know when I'm paying things when things are due. And that's so you can pay things on time and avoid fees. When you are working on lowering your debt, reducing your debt, it's important not to add to that debt, and having late fees or higher interest rates is not going to help you lower your debt. The other thing this bill calendar can do, it can help you create a cash flow spending plan, which means you're timing your income with your expenses. So if something doesn't align, you could possibly contact a creditor and move due dates. So for example, let's just say you get paid twice a month on the 1st and the 15th of every month. But rent, credit card, and auto loan are all due between the 1st and the 10th of the month. And you're struggling to make those payments happen, so you're getting late fees when you have to pay them on the 15th of the month. Contact your creditors and see if you can move back those due dates so that you aren't paying those. So with the help of that debt log and that bill calendar, you can start to know what you owe, know your debt, and that can lead you into some of these other areas. But it might also be where you start looking at things and you realize you really need to prioritize your debt. And I love this photo because, of course, you know, they're arm wrestling over money, but that's how it sometimes can feel when we are in a financial struggle, right? What bills do you pay first? And how do you prioritize that debt if you are in a tough situation? And again, the CFPB has really great resources on this. Prioritizing your debt. How do you make those tough choices in tight months? What do you do? Well, one, you really need to understand what's going to happen if you fall behind. If you fall behind on rent for 1 month, are you going to get evicted? If you fall behind on a car payment for 1 month, are you going to get evicted? You need to know what's going to happen if you fall behind on your debts. And then you have to assess the trade-offs. You know, do you have to have that car so you can drive to your job? So is it the best to skip that payment? Again, I can't tell you the answers on this. This is just a resource to help you prioritize your, weigh your risks and then prioritize your bills. And that's where it would come down. Then you would create a plan, and over there on the right-hand side, prioritize your bills. What's the highest priority bill that you have to make sure that you pay each month? And what's maybe something that you could not pay or call and see about other options for payments. But as you prioritize that debt, it's really important to also think about needs and wants. And so this is an activity in the Behind on Bills booklet through the CFPB. And are you spending money on things you don't need? Sometimes this is a really good thing to start with, is looking at those needs and the wants. Are there expenses that you can cut out? And are you meeting your basic human needs? Shelter, food, transportation, utilities. You've got to make sure that you are meeting those basic needs, and maybe there are some wants that you can cut out. And every time I give a financial presentation, I also give this amount. If you spend $27.40 a day every year, or every day in 1 year, it's $10,000 at the end of the year. And so a lot of times when I tell that $27.40 a day of spending, that's a lot. But what if I break that down to $6.84 a day? That's probably a little bit maybe more accurate. If you're going out and grabbing lunch, if you are going out to the movies, getting a coffee, $6.84 a day can really add up. It's actually $2,500 per year. And when we're talking about debt or reducing debt, $2,500 per year can really make a impact on reducing your debt. So thinking about those needs and wants can definitely help prioritize what's important to you. And then you get to the point of how can you get more money out of your current situation? Pretty much you have two options. Again, this is an activity in that Behind on Bills booklet. You have two options. You can either increase your income, bring in more money, or you can decrease your expenses. So using tools that we've provided you with, you can go through, are there any skills that you have that maybe you could increase your income? Could you babysit kids in the evenings? Could you create something woodworking wise and sell it? Are there other government programs that you might be eligible for to increase your income? And typically it's actually easier to decrease expenses. So again, this is where you need to consider your needs and your wants. Are there any fees you can avoid? Can you reduce utilities? Can you change habits such as eating out? So you just have to look at how can you get more money out of your situation if you are needing to prioritize that debt. So that brings us to reducing debt, which is like we just did that poll a little bit ago. This is the one that most people are interested in. And this is the topic that I'm really passionate about, is reducing debt. Because for most of us, we are probably on this hamster wheel, right? We are constantly running and tired of no progress, right? We're paying our monthly bills. Maybe we are living paycheck to paycheck, or we're not able to make ends meet at all and we're having to prioritize the debt, or we're going without needs or possibly even wants that we would like to have. So reducing debt can help you get off that hamster wheel. And one story that really always resonates with me, and it kind of equates to the society that we live in, but I went to a financial workshop, and the presenter, actually a professor at one of the extension, the universities that extension in the US is associated with, she was telling her story. And her breaking point was when she was talking to her sister about debt. And her sister told her, get used to it. You'll always owe someone something. And this professor was like, no, I don't want to always owe somebody. I don't want that for myself. I want to have freedom with my money. I want to be able to do what I want. And so that started her debt reduction journey and really has helped her do everything she's done to help others. And that's where I was too. My husband and I, again, we had debt. And I was tired of living paycheck to paycheck. And it was like, we make plenty of money. Where's our money going? So we had to both get on board and look at reducing that debt. And one way to do this is through a debt action plan. Now, this is very similar to the kind of the SMART goals that Deb and Elizabeth were talking about in that very first session, the financial checkup, creating a SMART goal. Goals are dreams with a deadline. And I understand not everybody is goal oriented or feels like goals really help them. But again, this is just a tool that may assist you. So you fill out this debt action plan. What goal is your debt keeping you from? What do you want to achieve? List steps to take, any resources, and then dates to complete the task by. And one thing I really like about that date to complete the task by is also adding one more step to this, and that's accountability, because accountability may be the key to reaching that goal. And that is according to a study by the Association for Talent Development. accountability can really increase your chances of reaching a goal. So just by setting a goal, you have a 10% higher chance of reaching it. If you add a timeline, which this debt action plan asks you to do, it increases to 40% chance. If you add those steps, which again, this debt action plan asks you to, you go up to 50%. So this is where I'm telling you to go maybe a step further, is commit to somebody, and you get a 65% chance of reaching that goal. But if you go even a step further and you make an accountability appointment with somebody, you go to 95% chance that you are going to reach that goal. And so an accountability appointment, find somebody, it could be a friend, a coworker, your spouse, somebody you share financial money with, somebody you share financial responsibilities with. Set a specific date that you guys are going to meet to talk about the debt that you have or the goal that you're doing to reach that. Give permission to check in with them and for them to check in with you. Have them send you encouraging photos or quotes, and do the same with them of things that you're working towards. It can really help you when you have that accountability to stick to those financial goals. And my husband and I, like I said earlier, have been on a debt reduction journey. And so we were not very smart with our money, and we bought what we wanted whenever we wanted it. We weren't really tracking expenses or doing anything. And we started being more intentional with it. And so we became really accountability partners together so that we could reach our goals that we wanted. And so one of my stories that I share on this one is I had leftovers in the fridge one day, but a coworker came to my office and was like, hey, you want to run across the street and go to the pizza place? And I was like, oh, pizza sounded really good. I really wanted to go, but I knew I had lunch in the fridge that was leftovers and would cost nothing. We have already paid for it. So I just texted my husband really quick, and he responded back, is it necessary? And I was like, nope. You're right, it's not necessary. So I ate the leftovers because that ultimately saved us probably $10 in eating out fees. So sometimes just having that person that you can talk to and do accountability with can be really helpful so that you can help look at those needs versus wants. But once you have that debt action plan, another tool that I strongly encourage you guys to use is a spending plan or a budget. And I'm not going to go over this because I know that Renee did a wonderful job 2 weeks ago talking about spending plans, but ultimately it's your expenses plus your savings should equal your income. So if you don't know what you're spending, use that spending tracker from CFPB, and there's also an income tracker to help you. So you've come up with your basic spending plan, what your expenses are and your savings should equal your income. And this is going to take you to a next step. Now, this is an activity in that booklet of Debt Getting in Your Way, the CFPB booklet. So ultimately what you're doing is you're taking your income, what you're putting in expenses and savings, and you're creating what would be your additional debt payment. That additional debt payment is going to help you start that journey on reducing debt. And there's two main debt reduction methods that I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to give you guys an example of reducing your debt too, to kind of help you visualize how all of this goes together. But first, we're going to talk about the very first debt reduction method that I'm going to talk about, and that is the lowest balance first. And so as you can see, you start off small. You need to make your minimum payments on every debt that you have. Again, having that debt log will help you know what your minimum payments are, and you're going to increase your payment on that smallest debt. So that last slide where you're finding out what your additional debt payment is, you're going to pay it to your smallest debt. As soon as your smallest debt is paid off, then you're going to pay it to the next smallest debt. A pro to this method is that if you have a lot of small debts, you're going to see progress really quickly because you're going to just continue to put that amount onto the next debt. One of the cons with this could be if your interest rates or fees are high on your larger debts, you might actually end up owing more or paying more over the length of the debt because those higher loans might be accruing more interest. So you do have to look at what works for you. The other option is your highest interest first. So again, make all your minimum payments, and you're going to use that additional debt payment, and you're going to pay it off on your highest interest rate first, the debt with the highest interest rate. After you've paid down that debt, then you are going to move to the second highest interest rate debt. So you're going to kind of go backwards. It looks a little bit, the chart does, from the other one. But the pro with this one is you get rid of your most expensive debt first. And by paying off that most expensive debt, you really get more bang for your buck. It's typically the cheapest method. But the con with this one is that you might not feel like you're making progress very quickly, especially if your debt is really large. So this one might be a little bit more frustrating and easier to give up on if you're not seeing progress being made. But like I said, I'm going to give you an example. We are going to walk through Dan and Debbie debt and kind of go through all the steps that we've talked about today to kind of put it all together for you. So by doing the activity earlier, the debt picture activity, Dan and Debbie wrote they drew out that they have a student loan, they have credit card, and they have auto debt. Then they did their debt log, and they realized on their student loan, they owe $300 on it. It is a 5% interest, $100 monthly payment. And if they started this debt journey in June, their payoff date, just by paying minimum balance, is going to be September 2021. On their credit card, they owe $500. It's at 18% interest. They have a $25 monthly minimum payment. And if they just pay minimum payments, their payoff date is not till May 2023. And finally, their auto loan is $3,100 owed at 6%, which is a monthly payment of $305. And their payoff date for this one is April 2022. So through their debt log, they've come up with, they owe a total of $3,900. And their monthly payment is $430. That is their monthly minimum payment. So now we're back to this step. They're looking at calculating what's left over. What's that additional debt payment that they can start using to reduce their debt? So their income, they've decided between the two of them, is $2,400 every month. Their expenses, they've come through and looked at everything, and their monthly expenses are $2,010, and that includes the $430 and that monthly minimum payment they have to make for those three debts. And they are being smart and trying to put away into savings as well. So they're putting 10% of their income into savings. So they have $240 that goes into savings. So their extra payment towards debt is $150. So if they're paying their $430, their minimum payment, and they're adding on $150, their total debt payment is $580. So now that they have that debt payment in mind, we are going to look at both the options of paying their lowest balance first and their highest interest to give you an idea of what it would look like. So by paying their lowest balance first, this is start off small. Again, they're going to pay minimum payments on everything, and they're going to add that additional $150 to their lowest balance, which is their student loan. So they've added that there. As soon as they have their student loan paid off, again, they're still paying minimum balance on everything, but they're rolling their amount over to the credit card because that's the next lowest balance. Once they have that out, then they're focusing everything on their auto loan. So in this scenario, they are going to have that debt paid off in 7 months, June through December, and it's coming in just at $3,989.67 is their total debt payment that they've made over that course of 7 months. And we'll look at a chart here in a little bit that gives a really good comparison of their options. So the debt reduction method with the highest interest first, as you will see, their credit card was the highest interest. So in this one, they're going to pay that one off first, then go to their auto loan, and actually their student loan will be last. And so it almost flip-flopped from the last one. Again, they're making minimum payments on everything. They're adding that $150 extra payment to their highest interest, and then they're going to the second highest interest and rolling it through. So on this one, it's also going to take 7 months to do, and it is $3,986.86 is their total debt payment over the course of those 7 months. So what I wanted to show you was the comparison between no debt reduction options, doing lowest balance first, and doing highest interest. So if they did no debt reduction, if they just continued to pay as their debt log told them, it would take 2 years, June 2021 through May 2023. Total they're going to pay over those course of the 2 years is $4,091.15. So their interest payment over the course of those 2 years is $191.15 in interest. But if they chose to do the lowest balance first, they're going to reduce that down to 7 months. Actually, both the lowest balance and the highest interest will both be 7 months. And they're going to save in interest, as you can see there, as well as their total amount paid. And like I talked about earlier, the highest interest first can sometimes be the most frustrating if that highest interest is a really large bill. But it typically is the cheapest option for you in the long run. You get the most bang for your buck. And that is shown here where, again, it takes 7 months. But if you look at those total amounts paid and the interest paid, you're definitely saving more by doing that higher interest versus the lowest balance. Not a huge amount, but definitely overdoing no debt reduction, it is a large amount. And one thing I want to point out is there's not a huge amount between the totals paid, excuse me. But if you think about it, there's there are 17 months difference there. So if you're thinking about 17 months of difference if you go with either of the debt reductions and you have that $580 over the next course of those 17 months, it's almost $10,000. $9,860 is what you would really have over that course of those 17 months. So when you sit there and think about it, what could you do with that extra $10,000? Could you increase your savings fund? Could you pay down a mortgage? Could you save to purchase a house or buy a car with cash? So there's a lot of things that you can do with that money. And so one of the resources that I really wanted to share today, and it's actually what I used to create all of these figures for Dan and Debbie, and that is PowerPay. It is a free resource available through Utah State University Extension. Joy is putting the link there in the chat for you. It's just powerpay.org. It has a lot of great resources. They have PowerPay, which is the debt reduction. You can create your own spending plans out there. You can do Power Save. There's calculators, which can help you calculate different financial matters. There's also educational resources and courses. Some of the courses do cost, but there are so many great resources out there on that PowerPay. And like I said, that's what I use to calculate all the figures for Dan and Debbie. I did not do that on my own. I use this online feature. So it's really great. And I encourage you guys to go out and create an account and play around and see what you can do to start your debt reduction journey, because it really does help free up not only money, but also stress. Money can be, financial matters can be very stressful. I know we've talked about that in a lot of our Wallet Wisdom sessions. And so PowerPay can really be helpful if you're interested in reducing debt. So the last area of dealing with debt that I wanted to talk about is dealing with debt collectors. And so this might not be what all of you are dealing with, but I just wanted to go through a few things really quick to potentially help somebody that might be going through that matter. One, when you're dealing with debt collectors, is you need to take action to verify if you owe that debt. And again, Joy is putting some information out there from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau about how to deal with debt collectors. And so you're just going to ask some information, the collector's names and address, the original creditor's name and address. Because a lot of times if you owe, let's say, a hospital bill and they are not actually the ones that are going to be the collector, they're going to give that bill to somebody else to do the collection process. So it might be ABC Collector Agency, and you're thinking, I've never owed them anything. We need to know who the original creditor is. You can ask account numbers, get a copy of the last bill, any documentation proving that you are required to pay it, such as a loan agreement. Ask for information. Other thing is be cautious. Sometimes debt collectors will say things that they're not really allowed to say, or they will be very pushy. You do not have to give them any sensitive information on yourself, like your social security card or number or bank accounts. Just be cautious if you are in the matter where you are working with debt collectors or dealing with debt collectors. And then also keep records. So every phone call that you receive, every letter that you receive, make sure that you keep that. If you're taking phone calls, write down dates, times, notes, and even the person that you spoke with, maybe even a phone number to call them back at. And save everything. That way, if you need anything, if you need to go to court to dispute it, you have records of your communications with the debt collectors. So what do you do if you don't owe the debt after you're kind of going through all this? If you found that you're like, this is not my debt, you need to automatically go to that debt collector, send a letter. They might even have a form on their website to start disputing that debt. If you don't dispute that debt right away and it goes through the courts and the court issues a judgment, you may lose your opportunity to dispute that debt. So you do want to do that right away. Tell them why you're disputing it. It's not your debt. The amount's wrong. I've already paid this, whatever it is. So don't delay on dealing with that, because sometimes I know it can get overwhelming if you are in that situation where you're dealing with debt collectors, and it can be easier to shut it out and not think about it. But doing that can be really harmful in the long run. And then on the other side, if the debt is legitimate, don't despair, as it says up there. You've got options. Know what to do if you really do owe that debt. You can try to settle it. A lot of times debt collectors will settle for a smaller amount if you pay it fully right then and there. So work with them, try to negotiate a settlement or negotiate a payment plan. If they're not willing to negotiate a settlement, but it's too large of a debt for you to pay right away, negotiate that payment plan for yourself. Or if you are able to, pay the debt and move on, if you're able to. For some, again, that financially might not be able to, but those are some options that you have with dealing with those debt collectors. Now, one thing it does mention there on that picture, which is out of the Behind on Bills and Debt Getting in Your Way booklets from the CFPB. If you are being sued by a debt collector, make sure to respond to those documents. Show up to court if you need to. If you don't, typically your judge is going to assume that you agree with the creditor and they're going to issue that money judgment against you. Now, if you get to that point where you are being sued, that's probably where you were going to need some legal advice. So find an attorney or someone that can advise you or represent you. But that's just kind of just some basic knowledge on dealing with debt collectors. Now, one thing, we're kind of getting here to the end, but one thing I want to add before we go to the question portion is debt management. This is a picture, again, I always share in all my financial presentations. Just like this man's strength, it didn't happen overnight, right? Debt typically does not happen overnight, and managing that debt can take time. And that includes any of those 4 areas that we talked about. Knowing your debt, it might take you some time to collect everything that you need. Prioritizing your debt, again, it could take some time for you to go through those needs and wants. and you might have some slip ups. Same with reducing your debt or dealing with those debt collectors. It's not always going to be immediate results. This gentleman, I can assure you, did not have immediate results when he started his fitness regimen. So take your time, try different resources out. Again, like we've said multiple times, the resources that we are giving you, the tools that we are giving you might not work for you. So try out different methods, try out different tools and resources, but give yourself patience and grace as you go through the debt management process, because it can be very overwhelming. And like I said, you can have slip ups. So give yourself some grace, and if you do have a slip up, then get back on that accountability and start working at it again. So I think at this time, if you have any questions, Kristen will share those.
I have not received any up to this point, so if anybody has any, if you want to send those to me, I will gladly ask them. I don't see any coming through, Monica.
Okay, well, if we want to go ahead, we'll stay on after, but we will go ahead and move to the next slide then and encourage people to go do the surveys.
Oh, we had one come through, and they're wanting to know if you can talk a little bit more about PowerPay, sorry.
That's all right. Yeah, so PowerPay is the online resource through, and I'll go back to that slide here really quick, if that's okay. Here we go. So PowerPay, you do have to create an account with it. It is through Utah State University Extension. So just go to that website. You do have to create an account, but it will give you a platform, and it's going to ask you pretty much that debt log that we were talking about earlier. It will have you create a debt log. It's going to ask you who you owe or what you owe, like credit card. It's going to ask what your minimum payment is, what your interest rate is, and what your total debt is. And it's actually going to calculate off of your interest rate what your payoff date will be. And then through PowerPay, you'll click on the PowerPay calculator, and it will help you decide what your options are. It will say you can pay it as is, and it's going to take you this long. You can pay it by starting on your lowest balance, and it'll take you this long. You can pay your highest interest rate, and it'll take you this long. And it'll figure those out. It'll figure them without doing that PowerPay or that additional debt payment like I was talking about. Or if you are like, okay, I can do a PowerPay, I can do an additional debt payment of this much, you can put that amount in there, and then it will calculate what those, what your monthly payment would be and how much sooner you could get that paid off and how much you would save through interest. So that's just in the PowerPay feature. And like I mentioned, there are lots of other features out there. You can create a spending plan. So if you are at the point where you're really thinking, I need to start looking at my spending plan, what's my expenses, what's my income, you can create a spending plan. You can do the Power Save option if you're looking at increasing your savings. Like I said, there's calculators, and there's a lot of educational resources as well that are available through Utah State Extension. So there are just publications and documents that you can click on. There are additional courses that if you wanted to pay to learn more about a specific subject, there are some courses out there as well. So it is a really great resource that is available mostly for free. So I really encourage, if you are, and most of our people were looking at debt reduction, if you really are interested in that, it is can be really helpful.
Okay, at this time, I don't have any more questions that have come through to me. So I guess we'll go ahead and conclude our presentation today. We'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. Joy is going to put a link of a short evaluation in the chat box, or you can use this QR code that is on the screen right now. It is short and it shouldn't take more than a couple of minutes, so we would really appreciate your feedback to help us improve this program as we move forward. We look forward to seeing you all next week when we talk about credit. Our presenter will be Joy Miller next Thursday, May the 27th at noon. And on our next slide, if you would like to contact Monica or have any further questions for her, her email address is here on the screen for you. And we want to thank you, Monica, for sharing your knowledge of debt management with us today. And we hope to see all of you guys at our final session next week at noon. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. If anybody has questions, please feel free to reach out. We are happy to help.